7.07 against the US dollar as trade tariff worries ease. GST reforms boost confidence and markets remain steady. Elon Musk stalling to roll out satellite broadband in India using Aadhaar eKYC, eyes 20 lakh customers with Jio and Airtel partnerships. In global news, US judge orders Elon Musk to face lawsuit over claims he tricked voters with a $1 million a day giveaway during 2024 election campaign. And as Trump-Modi tensions rise, American leader Nikki Haley urges US to mend ties with India, warning that losing decades of progress would be a strategic disaster and stressing India's role in a vital democratic partner against China's growing influence. And Google launches the Pixel 10 series in India with 4 new phones, Pixel Watch 4 and Pixel Buds 2a, powered by a faster Tensor G5 chip and Gemini AI. The top story that we are bringing to you this hour: India and the Eurasian Economic Union, comprising Armenia, Belarus, Kazakhstan, as well as Russia, among others, have signed the terms of reference to launch negotiations on a free trade agreement. The terms of reference were signed by Additional Secretary of the Department of Commerce Ajay Bhadru and Eurasian Economic Commissioner's Deputy Director of Trade Policy Department Mikhail Cherkogev in Moscow. The Ministry of Commerce and Industry in a statement said that the proposed FTA will boost exports, support micro, small and medium enterprises and diversify market access. Now, during the signing ceremony, both sides noted that the trade turnover between India and this region reached as much as $69 billion in 2024, registering a 7% increase over the previous year. The two sides also reaffirmed their commitment to early conclusion of the agreement and building a long-term institutional framework for trade cooperation. Now, this comes amid pressure from the US in the form of additional tariffs or secondary tariffs on India's import of Russian oil. Now, US still remains India's largest trading partner at almost double the size of the Eurasian region. In the last fiscal year of 2024-25, the total bilateral trade between India and the US had reached $131.8 billion, with the US remaining India's largest trading partner. Now, in the last fiscal, India's exports to the US, remember, rose 11%, almost 12% to $86.5 billion against $77 billion the previous year. Now, coming back to this possible FTA with Russia and other partners in the region, speaking about the signing of the terms of reference for the India-Eurasian Economic Union on a free trade agreement, India's External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar expressed his confidence in growing trade ties between Russia and Eurasian leaders. Listen in.
We are meeting here after about 10 months since the last session in November 2024 in New Delhi. And I think this is perhaps the shortest intervals between two sessions that we've ever had. Over the last 4 years, Excellency, our bilateral trade in goods has increased, as you have noted, from more fivefold, from $13 billion in 2021 to $68 billion in 24-25, and it continues to grow. A major trade balance has accompanied the growth. It has increased from 6.6 billion to 58.9 billion, which is about 9 times. So we need to address that urgently.
If the Indian goods are facing difficulties entering the US market, the Russian market would welcome Indian imports to the most extent possible. So don't worry about that. So as far as energy is concerned, indeed, we see that actually that would be quite detrimental to the global economic stability and energy security. It is not in the Western nature, which was clearly demonstrated in recent years. So they behave like neo-colonial powers, just exploiting and just thinking about benefit for themselves. So we can just agree that this pressure is unjustified. The especially recent telephone call by President Putin to Prime Minister of India, Modi, explaining and sharing the information about the recent developments around Ukraine, about this turbulent situation. That means that India matters very much to us. We are sharing, we are coordinating, and we are discussing everything. So we are absolutely capable to find any solution for the mutual satisfaction. Anyone in the world who is valuing its sovereignty and independence is at risk for the pressure from the West. That means just one thing. If West criticizes you, you are doing everything right.
All right, my colleague, executive editor of News9, Amit Kumar Ranjan, joins me from the newsroom with latest developments on this story. Amit, good morning. Thank you for joining me here. Help us understand the timing of the signing of these terms of reference, especially as we are less than a week away from the potential secondary tariffs that US had threatened on India for import of Russian oil, and India now going ahead and signing the terms of reference and eyeing a potential FTA.
Thank you, Karthik. This comes as a big boost and a big boost to the confidence of Indian industry. Remember, US, despite India's trade surplus with the US still being around $41 billion, up from around $35 billion in the last fiscal, but the US has termed India as a dead economy, and this will come as a big boost to Indian manufacturers. They will get access to Eurasian markets. The trade with Eurasian nations was stalled after the Ukrainian war began. So this has kick-started again last year. But this comes as a big boost, and between Eurasia and India, India is the manufacturing haven. And it will also be a big boost to the Make in India drive that this government has been pushing over the last decade. And the Indian MSMEs are the most likely to benefit from this. The combined GDP of both the partners is around 6.5 trillion. So there's immense room for growth for both.
Right. So let's stay with me. I also want to understand specifically, at a time when, like I mentioned, US is looking at slapping those secondary tariffs. Now, we don't know, after the Alaska summit, where there was a more cordial exchange between Donald Trump and President Putin, and there were reports of US potentially not going ahead with those secondary tariffs. And the fact of the matter being that India is very clearly diversifying beyond the US when it's looking at stitching trade agreements, because the trade agreement with the US still seems perhaps a little distance away. We've signed the deal with UK. We have gone ahead and committed that the trade deal with EU will come through by end of this year. And now we're talking about a potential FTA with the Eurasian region as well. So overall, does it seem that India is not putting all its eggs in the US basket and really looking at stitching up trade partnerships with the rest of the world in the potential eventuality that a trade deal with the US may not come through?
Yeah. Not putting all its eggs in one basket too, and India does need to expand its markets and partners worldwide beyond the US. This also drives voices in the US to re-strengthen ties with India, and that has already started happening, as you mentioned. So it's a two-way thing. From India's side, it needs to look for new partners to expand its trade in the eventuality, the worst case scenario that the US does go through with its 50% trade tariff and maybe more. And on the other side, this will drive voices in the US to re-strengthen ties with the trade ties with India, which have been good so far.
I mean, US and India ties have been great for decades, but of course that is the boat that Donald Trump is rocking right now. But Amit, I also want to specifically understand that India is already pretty clear that it is not cutting down on its oil import from Russia. And that has been the pressure that the US has been adding on India. Now, India is pretty clear, and in its statement, it has reiterated multiple times that India is going to protect its own economic interests. And at a time like that, to go ahead and further strengthen that relationship? Do you see this as some sort of a messaging to the US administration that, hey, India is not going to back down under pressure from the United States?
It could be, and I'm just gesticulating here who blinks first. So India is putting doing all the right things to put pressure on the US and get the message clear that they are going to do what is best for their economy. So if buying Russian oil is good for India's economy, they are going to do it, and they are not going to back down under US pressure. So that is the messaging India is giving to the US. Now, does the US respond with higher tariffs to counter India, or does it look back at what the way the trade ties between India and US have grown over the last decade or so, and even more, and basically weighs down on that and relaxes tariffs, or at least does not increase the tariffs to the amount that it says it will, remains to be seen.
Of course, it remains to be seen, but there's also pressure, Amit, on Donald Trump by Nikki Haley, and that also comes at a time when there is stress on the US administration that perhaps breaking ties or not having the same strategic emphasis on India may be a mistake for the US in the long term. In this current geopolitical, geoeconomic order that is getting rewritten by President Donald Trump, do you think the US can afford to mess around with India as well?
It seems everything that the US does not want are the moves that India is making. India is getting close to China, something that US would never want, should have happened. India's ties with Russia are not breaking down. We are not stopping, at least we are not stopping buying Russian oil immediately. We are expanding our trade ties with the European Union, apart from the EAEU that we have just done right now. So India is making all the right moves to counter the pressure that has come from the US. And geopolitically, what India is doing is something that US would never have liked in normal circumstances, like getting close to China. That is one.
Right, we will leave it at that. Amit Kumar Ranjan, thank you so much for your input to this very important developing story that we will keep tracking here on News 9. But the last point that Amit had mentioned was about the US-China relations. Let's continue with that and change the context to the India-China relations, which have been thawing now. Now, India plans to relax visa restrictions for Chinese business professionals, marking a major thaw in the bilateral ties. Now, the move will allow companies such as Vivo, Oppo, Xiaomi, BYD, as well as others to bring in Chinese managers for the first time in nearly 5 years, according to government as well as industry sources quoted in media reports. Now, under the eased norms, most non-technical business visas for key roles like CEOs, country heads, general managers and executives in sales, marketing, finance and HR are expected to be cleared. A senior executive from a leading Chinese electronics firm said that this step is a welcome relief as business decisions had been delayed for years, forcing executives to travel to countries like Singapore, Hong Kong, Thailand or Malaysia for meetings. Now, since the 2020 border clash, India has only allowed Chinese professionals in technical roles, with preference for companies participating in the production-linked incentive scheme in India. Recent months have seen warmer diplomatic engagement between New Delhi and Beijing, accelerated in part by the US tariff regime. Now, both India and China have agreed to resume direct flights, boost tourism and step up border dialogues. Now, Prime Minister Narendra Modi is scheduled to visit China later this month, where he will meet President Xi Jinping on the sidelines of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization summit. The easing of visa norms is expected to benefit Chinese firms with a presence in India and those entering joint ventures or partnerships with Indian companies. Executives from Xiaomi India welcomed the move, saying their leadership is eager to visit and deepen engagement in the Indian market. India's retirement fund body, the EPFO, or the Employees Provident Fund Organization, has recorded its highest ever net member addition since payroll tracking began in the year 2018. According to the latest provisional payroll data, EPFO added as many as almost 22 lakh new members in the month of June this year, marking almost a 13.5% year-on-year growth and a 9% jump month-on-month. Officials say this reflects not just rising employment opportunities, but also greater awareness of employee benefits and the success of outreach initiatives by the government. Of these, more than 10.5 lakh new roles, new subscribers were added, a sharp 12.5% rise from the month of May, with a bulk coming from the 18 to 25 years age group. EPFO added 6.39 lakh new members in this category alone, making up more than 60% of all fresh joiners. Women participation also rose, with almost 3 lakh, in fact a little more than 3 lakh new female subscribers joining in the month of June, while the net addition of women members stood at 4.72 lakh, reflecting both inclusivity and a more diverse workforce. On the state front, Maharashtra continues to lead the tally, contributing 20% of the total net payroll additions, followed by states of Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, Gujarat, Haryana, Delhi, Uttar Pradesh and Telangana. Now, together, these regions accounted for over 61% of the June additions. Now, while the payroll data remains provisional, EPFO says the overall trend includes more youth, more women and more professionals joining the formal workforce, making June 2025 a landmark month in India's employment history. And moving on to the bill that got passed yesterday, the Lok Sabha on Wednesday passed the Promotion and Regulation of Online Gaming Bill 2025, aimed at banning online games played with real money. The legislation, headed by Electronics and IT Minister Ashwini Vaishnav, comes amid rising concerns over addiction, financial fraud and money laundering linked to real money gaming. Under the new law, offering, facilitating or even advertising online money games will attract imprisonment of up to 3 years and fines up to 1 crore rupees. Repeat offences could lead to 3 to 5 years in jail and fines up to 2 crore rupees. Advertisements for such games will also be prohibited, with violators facing imprisonment of up to 2 years or fines of up to 50 lakh rupees. Now, the bill covers a wide range of activities from fantasy sports, online poker, rummy and other card games to online lotteries, effectively banning all online gambling. It also bars banks and financial institutions from facilitating transactions related to such real money games. Now, key sections of the bill are cognizable and non-bailable, underlining the government's intent to tackle the issue seriously. Vaishnav also emphasized that the move is not against digital gaming itself. The bill recognizes e-sports as a legitimate sport and supports online social and educational games that foster skill development, cultural engagement as well as social interaction. A regulatory authority will be set up to promote these positive segments of online gaming. Now, industry bodies representing real money gaming raised concerns over potential revenue loss, pointing out that the sector is valued at over 2 lakh crore rupees. Others welcome the bill. Experts say it draws a clear line between skill-based competitive gaming and betting. Listen in to what the Minister Ashwini Vaishnav had to say.
इस बिल में 2 भाग है। 3 सेगमेंट में से 2 सेगमेंट को सरकार प्रमोट करना चाहती है, ई स्पोर्ट्स को, ऑनलाइन सोशल गेमिंग को। उसके लिए अथॉरिटी बनाएंगे, गेम मेकर्स को सहायता देंगे, स्कीम करेंगे। लेकिन माननीय अध्यक्ष जी, जब समाज के बारे में, मध्यम वर्गीय परिवारों के बारे में और इंडस्ट्री के एक सेगमेंट के बारे में, जब समाज के बारे में और सरकार के रेवेन्यू के बारे में चिंता करनी होती है, इन दोनों के बीच में माननीय प्रधानमंत्री श्री नरेंद्र मोदी जी ने हमेशा मध्यम वर्ग के परिवार को ही चुना है, हमेशा समाज के बेनिफिट को ही चुना है, कभी इस पे कॉम्प्रोमाइज नहीं किया है। और इस बिल में भी प्राथमिकता दी गई है समाज के कल्याण को, और समाज में जो बहुत एक बड़ी बुराई आ रही है उससे बचने के लिए ये बिल लाया गया।
Kanish Kaur, the CEO of India Future Foundation, joins me this morning. Kanish, good morning. Thank you for joining us here on News9. Now, while the bill has been passed, the industry seems to still be up in arms, saying that this is going to be a major blow to not just the industry, but also India's economy. They're saying that the industry is valued at 2 lakh crore rupees. That seems a bit of a stretch because not too many of these firms are listed, but they're saying as many as 400 industries or 400 companies are into online real money gaming, and that's going to lead to unemployment, that's going to lead to flow of FDI outside India, and potentially gamers looking at offshore activities for real money gaming. How valid do you think are the industry's concerns, and is there a way out for the Indian industry now that the bill has been passed?
See, the issue is a major concern today because the online skill-based gaming companies today generate revenue up to 31,000 crore every year, and they pay taxes up to 40%. And they follow the norms which the government had gotten earlier. They take care of the eKYC, mixing them with offshore betting and gambling platforms which don't follow any norms, don't have entity in India, don't pay GST is not right. What we need to understand is that India today faces extremely tough time because of the 50% Trump tariffs. And if we start killing our own sectors where there is so much of potential by mixing them with other offshore betting gambling, it's only going to harm our economic interest. The online gaming sector is poised to grow. That's why we had got so much of investments from international investors. All the gaming companies today, if you look at, we have 3 unicorns. They might not be listed, but there are 3 unicorns which have been coming from India. And they have raised quite amount of money from outside India right now. So
that's right.
Going after them or killing the entire sector in the name of saying that it is causing hallucination, it is causing addiction, I don't think so is the right way to look at it.
But Kanishk, while I hear you and I appreciate your perspective, I also want to try and make this demarcation that the government has said that esports, skill-based games are fine. Real money is a problem because that is where people are getting duped, people are losing money, and perhaps even cases of suicide have been reported. So the point really is that, is this really going to be a death knell for the gaming industry, or can the gaming industry pivot to an advertising-based model?
See, just pivoting to advertising-based model can't be the solution to it. If you look at a lot of sports which are played in India, we have seen cricket, we have seen kabaddi, we have seen football. With them, we have seen fantasy sports getting associated and a lot of fantasy sports sponsoring some of these competitions as well, right? So just saying that through advertising, the companies will be able to survive and generate that kind of revenue and pay up to 40% of taxes, I don't think so that is the solution right now. What
but
we
then
need
again,
to say is
Kanish,
that everything
I'm
which
sorry to cut you. I'm sorry to cut you in, Kanish. I'm sorry to cut you in, but I'm saying, this 40% is also at the moment an assumption, because so far there's a 28% GST which has been slapped on online gaming, and on the face value, if you remember, that debate was hot about a year and a half, 2 years ago. But the point being that we don't know, with the real money equation now completely gone, perhaps the tax may not be on face value, perhaps the tax could be on premium, and perhaps there would be just a regular advertising based tax of maybe 18% and not 28%, which could eventually become 40%. So I'm saying this 40% also at the moment is an assumption because it is seen as a sin under the ambit of gambling. If that sector or that segment of gaming has been banned, we don't know whether the tax will go up from 28% to 40%. If anything, it could come lower to 18%, and that could be a win-win for the industry.
See, we haven't seen that the tax has been lowered. We have discussed this in the past. There's already a case in the Delhi High Court about it. We have seen 28% specifically is also extremely high. Given the massive growth of this sector is still emerging. So 28% is what they are already paying.
28%
but if you look at
slab.
the offshore betting companies, if you allow me, if you look at the offshore and betting and gambling companies, they don't pay any KYC checks. They don't allow 28% tax to be set up, and they are operating out of the country. So already the Indian online gaming space is already facing massive issues because of the lack of regulation. But if we start putting them in the same pocket at offshore and betting, I don't think so that's the right way to look at it.
Okay, sure. But again, we will have to wait and see because, the 28% tax was slapped at a time when real money was getting deposited into the accounts, and that is what the government wanted to tax. Again, the signal was pretty clear that the government did not want to encourage online betting, online gambling, and games of chance. So that message and that consistency has been there for the government. I want to just pivot for a minute to the other concern from the industry, and that is in the context of money flowing out of India. Now, the point is, with the government now banning financial institutions from transferring money or permitting money to be transferred into such applications, is there a real case of gamers, real serious gamers who are potentially addicted to or want to still try and bet on making money, switching on to cryptocurrencies and using crypto as a way to play games online on platforms which are not domestically based but based offshore? And hence the secondary question, is it time for India to also now finally put the cryptocurrency bill in parliament and try and enforce that also?
100%, because we have seen crypto and non-fungible tokens being used as a mechanism for transferring money. The offshore betting and gambling companies could still continue to work in India. A lot of times the apps which have been banned continue to operate in India through means of VPN. And we have seen that a lot of these companies throw massive advertisements despite of not having any entity in India. So until and unless that government doesn't bring out a bill to regulate cryptocurrencies and non-fungible tokens, it is a huge risk to India that these offshore betting and gambling platforms continue to operate and continue to advertise as well. We have seen massive Bollywood celebrities, Tollywood celebrities also involved in advertising a lot of these offshore betting and gambling platforms. So that is also another key area which needs to be controlled. That's one of the aspects where more work needs to happen.
All right, Kanishk Kaur, thank you so much for your input here and your perspective on this developing story. Of course, we will keep tracking all developments here. But with that, we will slip into a short break. Kranti Batini is up next with all to expect from the Lal Street this morning as markets have opened more or less flat, and also India's potential signing of an FTA with the Eurasian region. We'll discuss all that and more on the other side. You're watching News9.
एसोसिएट स्पॉन्सर डायना प्रीमियम ब्यूटी सोप, पहली झलक करे खूबसूरत।
मुथूट फाइनेंस गोल्ड लोन सुनहरी सोच प्रोग्राम में आप सबका बहुत बहुत स्वागत है। बनर्जी दा क्यों नाचो दादा?
सर, मेरा सोना मेरा बेटा को लैपटॉप दिला रहा है।
खूब भालो। हाँ मेदा जी, केम छो?
अरे मजा माचो मोटा भाई, मेरा सोना मेरी फैक्ट्री में नई मशीन्स लगा रहा है।
बहुत सारो है तो अपने सोने को काम पे लगाइए। आज ही कॉल कीजिए 1-800-313-1212 पर।
Papa, let's go to Duda. Happy birthday, Duda. Duda, I love you. Go, Duda, go. I love my Duda. Duda. I love my Duda.
Skoda.
You glow different when you're in love. 16 million shades of love to choose from. Unlimited love V6.
रिटायरमेंट के बाद लाल स्पोर्ट्स कार लूं या वर्ल्ड टूर?
तू खाली पुलाव बना, मैं ऑर्डर करूं।
पुलाव नहीं, प्लान। लाइफ इंश्योरेंस का रिटायरमेंट प्लान, गारंटीड पेंशन के साथ।
सपनों को रखो सुरक्षित रिटायरमेंट प्लान के साथ। सबसे पहले लाइफ इंश्योरेंस।
Go condoms?
It's over there.
क्या ये डिफरेंट साइजेस में आता है?
Actually sir, size matter नहीं करता.
तो फिर क्या मैटर करता है?
The hardness
of the condom.
Of what's inside.
For the first time ever, presenting Hard Rock Gel.
अब फ्री हर स्कोर कॉन्डम्स के 10 पैक के साथ।
बेस्ट है सर।
पर नया क्यों?
सर इसमें
आर्किटेक्ट जी, समथिंग स्पेशल फॉर यू। नया बिरला ओपस पेंट्स देने के लिए।
ऐसा क्या है
इसमें है एडवांस्ड क्वालिटी, ऊपर से बिरला ओपस अश्योरेंस एक्स्ट्रा। 1 साल में पेंट को कुछ भी हुआ तो पेंटिंग वापस करके देंगे।
वापस करके देंगे?
वापस करके देंगे। वापस करके देंगे।
वापस करके देंगे।
वापस करके देंगे।
वो भी फ्री। आर्किटेक्ट जी।
यस मैम।
सम मोर? क्वालिटी पे इतना कॉन्फिडेंस, इसीलिए बिरला ओपस अश्योरेंस। 1 साल में पेंट को कुछ भी हुआ तो पेंटिंग वापस करके देंगे। रजिस्टर करो birlaopus.com पर।
What are you watching, Dad?
Don't you often say, think before investing in the stock market? So I'm trying to gain some knowledge.
From whom?
That's this stocks expert. Makes great educational videos. Gives good investment tips too.
Dad, don't rely on such videos. Do your own research or contact a SEBI registered investment advisor. In the name of education, some influencers often misguide investors. You'll have to bear the losses.
An investor awareness initiative by SEBI.
Thanks for staying tuned in. You are watching Morning Brief at 9 right here on News9. Let's bring you all the action from the Lal Street's markets opened just about 15 minutes ago, and it seems to be a flattish day. Nothing really exciting to write home about in the markets, barring of course the great story which is coming from India's natural resources and the oil sector. We will bring up those stocks, but first up, let's look at the Nifty 50 and the Sensex. Both are up marginally, just a little bit in the green this morning. We haven't really seen a breakthrough level on the index ever since, of course, the Monday trade, which saw the GST reform announcement getting the markets to shoot up. Beyond that, it's been more or less a little up, a little down, but nothing really negative on the market this morning, except for the mid cap, which is seeing a little bit of pressure this morning, perhaps on account of profit booking across companies and indexes. Well, let's also move on to the Nifty 50 heat map and try and see which are the sectors which are adding to the momentum this morning. And like I told you, it seems to be the energy sector, with Reliance Industry up almost a percentage or so in early trade today. This could very well be due to the potential eventual signing of India's FTA with the Eurasian region, including Russia and India, pretty much giving a signal that it's not going to back down under pressure from the United States on secondary tariffs on importing oil from Russia. Apart from that, of course, the other sectors seem to be more or less flat, no real action in the market this morning. But we do have Kranti Batini, who's joining us this morning to take us through what to expect in trade this morning. Kranti, good morning. A flattish start for the morning, barring, of course, Reliance Industry, which is now up almost 1.2% or so. Is this coming on account of India's potential trade deal, trade negotiation with Russia and that region?
Hi, Karthik. Good morning to you. Yeah, markets are in a flattish zone at this point of time, but the good thing at this point of time to ponder up. This is a sentiment in the medium to short term. As long as we could able to sustain the level of 20, the direction, the near-term direction can be positive. But last 12 months has been, as and when market comes above 25,000 level, we could not able to sustain. Is this time is different? We need to check. Yeah, in the previous quarters and all, market could not able to sustain these levels. We need to wait and watch as the day progresses. Around 10:30, there are some kind of a profit booking we are witnessing in the market, and around 2 o'clock in the afternoon, some kind of a rebound buying is coming after opening of the European markets.
Right.
So these are the crucial things to watch out for this day. As long as Nifty could able to sustain the level of 25,000, nothing to worry at this point of time. Definitely, as you rightly mentioned, these are the very choppy markets. The FTA behavior, the foreign portfolio investor behavior, tend to sell on rallies at this point of time.
All right, of course, it is choppy, and we have been seeing these choppy waters for a while now, but I think investors are still holding on. At least retail investors are not taking any knee-jerk reactions despite all the action that we're seeing from the foreign investors at this moment. But Kranti, there's something very interesting that you had shared with me, and this is about a prediction that you had made about more than a decade ago, the prediction about India sort of diversifying its oil basket and also predicting that energy prices, crude prices could be in the region of about $70 or so. Tell us what you had predicted, 13 years back, and how's that coming true today in the context of oil prices?
Yeah, Karthik, as you rightly mentioned, 10, 12 years back, the oil prices have been burning, and we witnessed oil prices predictions like global research agencies predicting the global oil prices around $200 and $250 per barrel. But contrary to that common view, consensus view of the market, we have the research and thought process. There is a lot of emphasis has given in terms of the oil exploration activity across the globe that could able to enable more production across the regions. It can be African region, it can be Russia. Of course, the Russian oil only has been the center of the stage today. But 10-15 years back, there was not greater emphasis on the Russian oil at this point of time. So all these factors together and the alternative fuel and energy needs together, we have a clear-cut prediction that oil prices are bound to be in a long bear market. And in our News9 channel also, whenever there were geopolitical issues that propped up, when the oil prices tend to go up around $95, $100 per barrel, we tend to persuade and tell nothing to worry at this point of time. These are the short-term blips, and oil prices tend to be in a bear market. That's what our prediction has. Thanks to that, and that has come accurately at this point of time, and that's what we are expecting and witnessing today.
Absolutely. So hats off to your prediction, Kranti, and to all of viewers. That's the reason we have experts like Kranti joining us, regularly on the show, so that you're on point when it comes to what to expect from markets, from economies going forward. But Kranti, I want to now shift, focus a little bit to, to India and the Eurasian region now potentially inching closer to signing of a trade deal. The terms of reference have been signed. External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar seems fairly optimistic about a potential FTA getting signed with the region in some time. I want to bring it in the context of US, the secondary tariffs that Donald Trump had threatened on India, but then there was potentially reporting around softening of that stand after the Alaska summit. And now India pretty much, going ahead in defiance, if I can call it, and saying that, we want to further strengthen our ties with Russia and the region. So what do you make of this geopolitical, geoeconomic new order which is emerging, and India's stand in that?
In continuation to the recent FTAs, India has signed around 13 FTAs in the recent past. And in continuation to that trade deals, India has been signing the bilateral free trade agreements with different nations. Of course, it's timely at this point of time with this region, because this is the burning point across the globe. So they want to take the advantage at this point of time, are giving an indication to the Trump administration. We are going ahead with the signing a deal with this region. Of course, for a nation like India, our internal energy priorities are extremely crucial, and we want to grow around 8 to 9% in the coming years to double our GDP. Karthik, the important factor we need to focus is the energy requirements. So government have a stance. They don't want to compromise at this point of time with respect to the energy requirements are concerned. That's where the Indian economy is trying to give a signal to the US administration. Of course, we all know the US administration is trying to use India as a punching bag at this point of time. But we are going to show our strength and give them the indication.
All right, well, Kranti Batini, thank you so much for your perspective on the developing story, which we will be tracking here on News9. But let's leave it at that for this morning. And moving on, Elon Musk's Starlink has just cleared a major hurdle to enter India's broadband market. The government has officially approved the satellite-based internet provider to start operations, and Starlink will now use Aadhaar authentication for customer verification. According to an official statement, the Unique Identification Authority of India has onboarded Starlink as a sub-authentication and eKYC user agency. This means Aadhaar will be the backbone for verifying new customers, making the process smooth, secure and quick. Now, at its current capacity, Starlink can onboard nearly 20 lakh customers in India. Officials call this a landmark moment, bringing together India's trusted digital identity with global satellite technology. Aadhaar eKYC will help Starlink meet regulatory norms while ensuring high-speed connectivity reaches homes, businesses, institutions, as well as remote parts of the country that it intends to serve by way of satellite broadband. And before we slip into a break, let's look at the global stories that we're tracking for you this morning. US President Donald Trump escalates his attacks on the Federal Reserve, demands Governor Lisa Cook to resign over mortgage security. US Vice President J.D. Vance says European nations will have to carry the lion's share of Ukraine's financial burden under future security guarantees. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov warns any Western effort to secure Ukraine's defense without Moscow is a road to nowhere, just 2 days after Trump's Washington summit with Zelensky and European leaders. At Microsoft's Redmond headquarters, 18 protesters arrested after staging a second day of demonstrations against the tech giant's ties to Israel. Thousands of Airbus employees in Britain will launch a 10-day strike next month, demanding higher pay and threatening production of aircraft wings. British inflation hits 3.8% in July, the highest in 18 months, underscoring the UK's struggle with worst price growth problem among major economies. Japanese exports fall sharply in July, marking their steepest monthly decline in 4 years. Officials cite US tariffs as key risk for the export-reliant economy. Chinese toy giant PopMart expects annual revenue to exceed $4 billion as global demand for its popular Labubu dolls drives record sales. And finally, a battery-powered train in the UK set a new world record, traveling 200 miles on a single charge, hailed as a breakthrough for greener rail transport. We'll get you these stories on the other side of the break. You're watching News 9.
Associate sponsor, Dyna Premium Beauty Soap. पहली झलक करे खूबसूरत.
Every brand tells a story. And they are the storytellers. The Sutradhars. They present a brand with band, baja and barat to you. They are the Brandwalas.
Welcome back. You're watching News 9. Let's shift focus to all the global stories that we're tracking for you. US President Donald Trump escalated his attacks on the Federal Reserve on Wednesday, calling for Fed Governor Lisa Cook to resign. Now, in a fiery Truth Social post, Trump demanded Cook must resign now, citing reports of scrutiny over 2 mortgages linked to her. The Trump administration has already pursued mortgage fraud allegations against Democratic figures, though it remains unclear if Cook will face a probe. It was not immediately clear if such a probe will take place, targeting Fed Governor Cook, who is the first black woman to serve on the central bank's board. Remember, the US president is also limited in his ability to remove officials from the central bank. And at Microsoft's Redmond headquarters in the US, as many as 18 people were arrested on Wednesday after staging a second day of protests against the company's business dealings with Israel's military. The protesters set up tents and chanted slogans before being detained on charges including trespassing, malicious mischief, resisting arrest and obstruction. The activists want Microsoft to end sales of its cloud and AI services to Israel, arguing the technology contributes to civilian deaths in Gaza. In a May blog post, the tech giant said it has found no evidence its Azure or AI products were being used to harm civilians in Gaza. Russia warned on Wednesday that any attempt to address Ukraine's security without Moscow's involvement is doomed to fail. Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov called Western efforts a road to nowhere just 2 days after US President Donald Trump hosted Ukraine's Volodymyr Zelensky and European leaders in Washington. Listen in.
We cannot agree with the fact that it is now proposed to resolve collective security issues without the Russian Federation. This will not work. We have already explained more than once that Russia does not overstate its interests. But we will ensure our legitimate interests firmly and harshly. And I'm sure that in the West, and above all in the United States, they understand perfectly well that seriously discussing security issues without the Russian Federation is a utopia, a road to nowhere.
And shifting focus to the UK now, thousands of Airbus workers in Britain will go on a strike for 10 days starting next month over a demand like Boeing had for better pay, threatening to disrupt production of aircraft wings. More details in this report.
Thousands of Airbus workers in Britain will go on strike for 10 days starting next month. The trade union Unite said Wednesday they're demanding better pay. Unite represents more than 3,000 aircraft fitters and engineers at Airbus. It said 90% of its members had voted for industrial action. They said the strike will go ahead unless the European playmaker presented an improved pay offer. Unite said the strikes are planned for September 2nd to 3rd and 10th to 11th and other dates yet to be determined. The union said it could disrupt wing production for Airbus's commercial and military aircraft programs and delay deliveries. Airbus said in a statement, "We are not currently concerned about the impact on year-end deliveries." The playmaker also said it made a competitive and fair pay offer last year, which it said followed previous pay increases totalling more than 20% in the last 3 years. Unite said it had asked Airbus for a pay offer that reflects rising inflation and cost of living.
Staying with the United Kingdom, British inflation hit its highest in 18 months in the month of July when it increased to 3.8% from 3.6% in the month of June. Official data released on Wednesday once again highlighted the country's worst price growth problem amongst the world's major rich economies. Take a look.
British inflation hit its highest in 18 months in July. Official data Wednesday showed it rose to 3.8% from 3.6% in June. It once again left the country with the biggest price growth problem among the world's major rich economies. The headline rate reached its highest since January last year. Price rises in Britain's services sector also accelerated to 5% from 4.7% a month earlier. British inflation is running higher than in the US, where it held at 2.7% in July. It was also steady in the Eurozone, where it's expected to remain around the European Central Bank's 2% target over the coming years. The Bank of England thinks the country's inflation will hit 4% in September, which is double its target, and stay above 2% until mid-2027. Some of the difference with inflation in other countries reflects how energy and other utility prices are regulated in Britain. Big rises in utility bills in April have boosted year-on-year comparisons. Economists argue Britain's relatively tight labour market has also become more rigid since Brexit, which has put upward pressure on prices. Wednesday's data showed the biggest contributor to the rise in inflation in July was from transport, particularly airfares.
And from the story of the world's sixth largest economy to the world's fourth largest economy, Japan's exports posted the biggest monthly drop in about 4 years in the month of July. Government data released on Wednesday showed the impact of US tariffs, rising concerns about the outlook for the export-reliant economy. Take a look.
Japan's exports logged the biggest monthly drop in over 4 years in July. The plunge, shown by government data Wednesday, comes as the impact of US tariffs intensifies. It raised concerns about the outlook for the export-reliant country. Total exports from the world's fourth largest economy dropped 2.6% year-on-year, its biggest since February 2021. This fall was larger than analyst expectations and marks a third straight month of decline. Exports to the US in July fell by a tenth from a year earlier, with automobiles slumping over 28%. However, in volume terms, car exports fell just 3.2%. It suggests Japanese automakers' price cuts and efforts to absorb additional tariffs have partly shielded shipments. In April, Washington imposed 25% tariffs on cars and auto parts and threatened 25% levies on most other Japanese goods. It struck a deal in July that's lowered tariffs to 15% in exchange for a US-bound $550 billion Japanese investment package. The agreed tariff rate on automobiles, Japan's largest export sector, is still far higher than the original 2.5%. Exports to other regions were also weak, data showed, with those to China down 3.5%. As a result, Japan ran a deficit of around $795 million in July, compared to forecasts of a $1.33 billion surplus.
And on to the last story this morning. Labubu doll maker Pop Mart is cashing in on global demand. The Chinese toy giant said on Wednesday it expects revenue to exceed, hold your breath, $4 billion this year after reporting record half-year results. Take a look.
Labubu doll maker Pop Mart said Wednesday it sees revenue hitting over $4 billion this year. The toy company also announced record half-year results. Frenzied demand for the furry Labubu dolls, especially in overseas markets, sent net profits soaring nearly 400%. Pop Mart was the most actively traded stock by turnover on the Hong Kong Exchange on Wednesday. Shares rose more than 12.5% to their highest close since making their debut just under 5 years ago. Pop Mart's primary business is producing and selling collectible toys. Many of them are sold in blind boxes, packages that consumers buy without knowing which version of the toy is inside. Labubu has become a favourite of celebrities including Rihanna and David Beckham and has sold out around the world. Most popularly a charm for handbags, Pop Mart says it will this week launch a mini version of Labubu that can be attached to phones. The toy company also said it's about to begin store expansion. It currently has 40 stores in the US and expects to open 10 more there by the end of this year. It said emerging markets, including the Middle East and Central and South America, are also being explored. Pop Mart said on Tuesday the Monsters series, of which Labubu is a part, raked in almost $670 million in the first half. That's nearly 35% of total revenue. The company's shares have risen over 230% year to date, with a market cap of more than $50 billion. It makes Pop Mart more valuable than legacy industry giants like Barbie maker Mattel.
And with Labubu sales reaching almost $4 billion, it's only anybody's guess how big the sales for its fake Lafufu are in the open market. But well, we leave you with that thought right here on this edition of Morning Brief at 9. Sakshi Litoria is up next with the latest news. Thanks for watching.
Hi, this is Karishma Tanna. Hi, I'm Nushat Bharucha. Catch this conversation on News9. Catch this conversation on News9. Catch me and this conversation on News9.
Hi, this is Shahid Kapoor and catch this conversation on News9.
What is to the nines? In literal terms, it's perfection. But to us, it's not just a phrase, it's an attitude. One that starts at your desk and sends a statement to the world. To the nines is about taking charge. It's a way of life where every seam, every fold, is crafted with excellence. It's timeless.